Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another edition of A Piece of Cake with our brother in the right hand corner. Please introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Anthony Green, more commonly known as Abdurraheem Green. In the left-hand corner, I guess it's left, depends which way you're looking at things, is of course the esteemed. Introduce yourself, bro.
Anthony Baker, otherwise known.
Oh, two Anthonys.
to
Two
Anthony.
Anthonys.
Oh, yes, definitely. Also, more commonly known as Abdul Haqq Baker. Abdurraheem, good to see you
Alhamdulillah, bro.
this week. What we're
Good to
going
see
to
you
do,
again, bro.
yeah, definitely. While we're going to continue with the hadith, the third aspect of the hadith, wealth before poverty, we'll read the hadith again. We'll keep this one short today, bearing in mind you're abroad, Hassan's abroad, and that we're in these days of fasting. So while you may have closed yours over there, if you're fasting these days, early days of the Hijjah, we've still got some time to go in the UK over here. So we're going to keep this one short and sweet, but poignant and to the point. So would you like to begin by reading the hadith at the bottom, and then we can commence?
Well, the Prophet ﷺ told us that we should make use of 5 before 5. So the Prophet ﷺ said that, well, I have to wait for it to scroll now. But the basic gist of it is make use of your, take advantage of 5 before 5, your youth before your old age, which we covered already. And as we did, your health before your sickness. Your wealth before your poverty, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and your free time before your busyness, very important one, and your life before your death. So all of them, really important things, blessings that Allah has given us, and that a lot of people fail to really take benefit of these things in a proper way. Now, the topic of wealth it's a very poignant one for me, from the point of view is I'm a self-confessed ignoramus when it comes to money. I'm pretty terrible at money management, and it is literally a miracle. It's a miracle how, alhamdulillah, Allah has fed me and clothed me and given me a roof over my head, and I constantly wonder where my money just literally disappears to. So I think both of us definitely, I have definitely lived through some really, really tough times. Yeah, so I wouldn't say poverty exactly. But yeah, I've been through times when I didn't know when I was going to how I was going to pay my bills, scrabbling and scraping for, a few pounds here and there, just wondering how I'm going to manage with things. I've definitely been there. And personally, it's something that it still frightens me. It does. It's one of the things that still makes me feel pretty uncomfortable, and it's a proper test of my tawakkul. But I think what I understand anyway, from what I understand from this hadith, all of us get, like, our iman goes up and down, right? And we're healthy sometimes and sick sometimes, right? And sometimes we have time on our hands, and then sometimes we're just so busy, we just don't know, we can't seem to get a minute for anything. It's the same thing with money. Sometimes we have money, and alhamdulillah, we look at it and it's like, wow, I got so much money, I don't even know what to do with it. And there's other times when I have so little, I don't even know how I'm going to pay the bills. So it's those times that when you have money, what does the Prophet mean? Make use of it. I think what it means is to give charity. That's what it seems. It's the most obvious and apparent meaning to me, is that when you have excess wealth, that is the time to give charity, because that's really making use of your wealth. The real best use that you can ever make of your wealth is storing it up in the bank of the akhirah, the halal bank of the akhirah, because that's making it permanent. All of this money and this wealth you're going to have in this life, and of course, the topic of wealth, as we've had a pre-discussion on this, Abdul Haqq, is actually what constitutes wealth is actually itself very, very broad. It doesn't necessarily mean money, right? It could mean lots of other assets that you have been given, that could be either physical assets or even spiritual, psychological assets. And we can talk about this from an individual level, but we could also talk about it from a civilizational level as well, right? How about on a civilizational basis, that we as a civilization or a community, let's say the Muslim community in the UK, have been blessed with a lot of wealth comparatively. We have. And I think, mashallah, to be fair to the Muslims in UK, they have displayed very, very deep levels of generosity. And we are the biggest givers in the United Kingdom by far. And not by percentage terms, in real terms. You know, just as the 2 million of us give more charity than all the rest of the people combined. So, mashallah, this is a good use of wealth, alhamdulillah, as a community and as well as individuals. But as opposed to that, Abdul Haqq, bro, what's a bad use, do you think, of your wealth? And how, in what other different ways could we perhaps understand this hadith? What do you think, bro?
No, very good introduction, Abdurraheem. I agree with everything you've said there. I think a bad way of using wealth is through displays of ostentation, wastage of wealth. Allah warns us about not being spendthrift in that regard. We have in the surahs those who boast of, I've had much wealth and I spent it, and we hear that in one of the ayats that are there as well. So I think using wealth to oppress, whether it be psychologically, emotionally, using it to influence means towards what is favorable to us, knowing that the recipient of the wealth that you're giving is desperate and will do anything for that particular wealth. I think that these are aspects of poor use of wealth, exploitation, which we see, exploitation of people. We see that hadith where of the people who were caught in the cave, and each of them made a dua to Allah when the rock fell before the cave. And we had the individual who said that he desired his cousin really badly, and in a time of poverty and drought, he gave her some of the wealth and said, I will give you this if you will let me have intercourse with you. And the hadith, as he was about to enter, she said, fear Allah. And that stopped him from completing the act. And he called upon that abstention, saying, Allah, if I did this seeking only your pleasure, I abstained and I sought your pleasure, get us out of this place. And the rock moved a little as a result of that, as it did for each of the others. But look at what he was doing. He was using his wealth and about to take advantage of someone who was in a vulnerable, needy situation. We have to ask ourselves, how many of us do that? How many of us do that and we're doing it unconsciously, or we're cognizant that this wealth, this individual needs it, and we're going to take advantage of getting what we need? We could be an employer. Okay? We could be an employer. We could be someone who gives charity, and we've mixed the intention when we're giving that charity, knowing that we're going to curry favor with the individual, or we're going to get something from them as a result. Then our wealth, that's a negative use of our wealth.
That's very deep. I never even thought about that before. This is why I love doing this podcast with you, bro. I mean, you know, that it really, no, that's subhanAllah, never ever crossed my mind about the downside of using wealth to oppress others, subhanAllah. And I think, you know, the hadith you mentioned, what you mentioned, shows two sides. It shows the ugly side of poverty. You know, on one hand, you know, the poor will enter paradise, 500 years before the wealthy, is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned. But, you know, poverty in and of itself is not necessarily, it's not really something desirable. No. Just as being sick is not necessarily desirable. I mean, you can get benefits of it, and Allah will teach you lessons, and inshallah, a person hopefully will become grateful and humble, which is more important, that you learn humility. Because Wealth definitely, we can see from the Quran, can make you arrogant. There's no doubt. I mean, this is the biggest, what you find, the consistent theme in the Quran, when you look at the stories of the prophets, is number one, obviously, it's the story of dawah. It's the story of them inviting people to Islam. But the same thing seems to repeat itself over and over again. It's like a broken record, really. It's human beings, like it's and the thing is, bro, the crazy thing is, I have heard people in this day and age, 1,400 years later, literally saying the same words as Allah mentions the kuffar saying to the prophets, so the same things the kuffar was saying to their prophets, you find people saying almost they're repeating it like they're on a broken record and they're just on some like, what? Couldn't they think of something different to say? And a lot of it comes from the arrogance of wealth. It's the people of Nuh, that they were rich, the rich people, they despised the followers of Nuh because they were poor, right? Who are these people following you? The weak and the whatever. And it's the same. It's something that repeats itself over and over again. And even with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was opposed by, who was he opposed by? The Quraysh. And a lot of the time it's because they feel that Islam is going to be a barrier between them and their accumulation of wealth. And I don't think it's any different in the world today. I think that's the reality of the world today. I've been thinking a lot about the corporate globalist agenda, which you have, there is a small bit of it, I think, to be honest, a distraction, this whole, LBGT, stuff is just actually smokes and mirrors from the bigger crimes that are going on, but it's still a part of the agenda. But it's the same thing, bro. They at the end of the day, it's, think about the Sharia. Yeah. Think about the things that Islam does not allow you, for example, to buy and sell. You're not allowed to sell water, right? Water is a right, a human right.
That's right.
The whole abolition of riba, which is the whole system through which people are controlled. And you talked about using people's desperate circumstances in order to manipulate them and control them. So what is more a clear case of that than the whole unjust system of riba?
Yeah.
Right? And the whole thing of uncertain contracts, entering into contracts that have no certainty. Right. And you find, unfortunately, this is exactly what is going on in the world today. People are controlled through such malicious and deviated contracts. So I think, bro, it's we'd like to talk about this topic in a short space of time, but you can't. It's actually massive, bro, and its branches are so many. And to be honest, bro, it's your fault because you just brought it out from nowhere. Like, what? Oh yeah, bad use of wealth is using it to oppress others. I never even thought of that, bro. I just think about me personally not having any money, But you're right, bro. You're right. I mean,
there's poverty. When you look at poverty and what the hadith is saying, take advantage of your wealth before poverty. So we're being told we're going to arrive at a particular stage. Okay, we're going to be told that, and what has your wealth done? As you said, storing it in the bank, the halal bank in the akhirah. What charity have you given? What good have you done? How have you provided for your family? Up until the point where you hit poverty, have you been using your wealth to first and foremost prioritize your family, and then after that, be doing sadaqah and just spending it in a permissible way, but earning it in a permissible way as well, Abdurraheem, and not mixing it with the haram. This is the importance, because we're told that take advantage of. And how do we take advantage? Like, even these days that we're in now, we know this story. This particular time is about sacrifice. We know what happened with Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail, and what Allah asked of him. And as he was about to sacrifice him, you've succeeded in the dream. How many of us would sacrifice our sons? We even think about it. We'd say no from the get-go. No, we're not going to and disbelieve as a result of that if we were ever in that situation, which we won't be, alhamdulillah. We're not. But the point is, with our wealth, we want to store more of it, and we're afraid to sacrifice. You being a multi-millionaire and giving someone £100, is not a major sacrifice for you. It's inconsequential as far as you're concerned. That you don't feel that aspect of the sacrifice. So I'm not saying give all of your wealth. None of us can be like Abu Bakr or even Umar with regards to how we had their wealth when the Prophet ﷺ asked who would help in particular causes. But it's really important that as we have wealth, we are prioritizing our spending and we're being grateful, Abdurraheem. We're being grateful, okay? Because I going back to when I was a child, I remember when my mum and dad divorced, and we were living quite well. We're affluent in Tooting, really nice family home. Dad would change your car every year, remember, and the clothes we were wearing, everything. But then when the divorce took place in the 70s, being a single parent, being a mother, single parent mother at that time, was difficult. And I don't mind sharing this aspect because I intend to write about this later on. But we moved from, you know, it's affluent, Clapham South. You know, I moved South. To go late all along there, you know, the huge houses, the wealth that's there and everything. But this one house that we moved into, where my mum was in the basement. Okay, it was a one room and a kitchen. My mum made a bedroom out of plywood in this living room just to have a split area to sleep, and we slept on a bunk bed for my brother and I, and my sister on the bed beside us. No bath, so you know the Victorian Edwardian times when you have the big tub bath that you have to pour the hot water. The toilet was outside. Okay, so we used to be petrified going out there in the night and everything. We had a dead rat in the ceiling. Okay, and we had a cellar that ran down the side of us. Okay, so we went from what was affluence, abject poverty. I won't even describe something. My mum did really well to get us out of that, but I had recurring nightmares for 2 years from the age of 8 to 10. I remember the nightmares every night. I had those, but I saw and tasted a poverty that, why that you saying about that fear of going into poverty when you've got wealth and everything, you can imagine that for individuals who face worse than what I faced as a child. I think I never want my family to go back to what I actually tasted. I do everything to make sure that they don't. So the point is, if the hadith is about before your poverty, I know that was when I was a child and everything like that. And there will be a time, I think this hadith is telling us that there is an eventuality, or there's a likelihood that we will taste poverty. And as you said, it may fluctuate and go in that regard. And I believe that. I've witnessed that myself, as you've indicated you have. But it's really, really important that at the time of wealth, that we acknowledge who has bestowed that wealth on us regularly. We show gratitude by what we do with that wealth and what we do with ourselves, Abdurraheem. Because what actually happens is when we get out of sticky situations, the worship becomes a little bit more relaxed. The sunnahs diminish a little bit. And we might put in our mind, I've got to keep making this money. I've got to go to work. So I'll do my obligatory salah. I'll do my obligatory acts. And that's it. And also we've got to be careful that we don't start getting kibba, pride in our heart, because of the success of the wealth that's coming to us. Because that can happen. That can happen. We know that about the hidden shirk. We know about about being on like an ant on a black stone on a black night and a cloud. Night. So committing shirk in these times, when we have wealth, is a very, very likely risk. So I'll stop on this point, but ensuring that we are taking advantage. And what does that mean? Gratitude to Allah. I will reiterate, gratitude to Allah every time when we're spending. You know, we may spend and we may see a poor person on the street. I'm not saying go and give sadaqah to that person every time you spend and everything, but be cognizant that you could be that person. You know, be cognizant that when you're buying something new or you're even buying food to eat, that there are those who are starving in our own society. We don't have to look at Africa, India, Asia, anywhere else, wherever. In our own society, there are individuals, we pass them each time. Do we give them any mind? You know what the hadith where Allah tells us that if you see someone in a situation worse off than you, that you say Subhanallah, because Allah to be thanked. You say Subhanallah.
I think the thing is, the other thing that what is very interesting. So we had a bit of a glitch there. Sorry, I thought you'd stop, bro, and it was just actually it was the feed glitching. So yeah, I you know, following on from what you said, bro, I think it's very interesting that one of the things that people who have a lot of money do mention about the advantage and the benefit of having lots of money is that what money, there's nothing in money in and of itself that's going to make you happy, right? Money itself, just having it on its own, is not going to make you happy.
Yeah.
It's what money allows you to do. I think that's the key, right? So that ability, so your ability to use that money in a way that is going to somehow enhance your life. Now, one of the things that money can give you is, interestingly, free time. I know that's not our topic, but if you have money, one of the things it can do is free your time up to use that time for more useful things than, say, cooking and cleaning and I don't know, whatever other things that you end up having to do yourself when you don't have the money to be able to afford to get someone else to come and help you do it, for example, right? And I think the other thing is the other thing about wealth that it allows you to do is it allows you to buy education. It allows you to buy all sorts of things that can enhance your ability to learn as an individual, whether it's learning Arabic or Quran or Islamic stuff, or just learning life skills, other life skills, whether it's, programming. I mean, that's an advantage. You have wealth, you can buy a computer, you can learn programming, you can learn different languages, you can pay for teachers, you can learn to ride, you can learn to fly a helicopter, whatever it may be, depending on how much money you've got. But I mean, money gives you access to all of these actually genuinely super useful and beneficial life skills, getting a personal trainer, getting your diet right. Like, all of these things are really good and beneficial things that you can use for this. I'm just talking about for your own self and your family here, right? These are good things that money allows you to and when you're in a state of poverty, you don't have those opportunities. That's just the reality, right? Because you're just going to be too busy just trying to make ends meet. And I think, the other thing that makes me think about the hadith, right? The thing that the the hadith makes me think about is that, why did the Prophet say your poverty, your wealth before your poverty? And it's almost as if you have to be wealthy first, right? Or at least have some type of wealth first to really understand what is poverty, right? From the point of view of somewhat, the thing that is normal for you, if something's normal for you, human beings get used to it, right? I'm not saying it's nice. I'm not saying it's pleasant. I'm not saying that people necessarily will put up with it. But the point being is, for example, if you are used to a really physically tough life, you're used to it. It's normal for you, right? But if you're like most of us, we live pretty soft, cudgy lifestyles, right? And then imagine suddenly we were forced into a situation where we needed to do 16 hours of physical forced labor every day, right? We are not going to take that as well as somebody who had that from day one, right? So the point being, the same thing with wealth. When you only really feel the pinch of poverty, the stabbing of poverty, when you've lived that, the lifestyle of wealth. And it's very interesting. I know people who have made a lot of money, and then the thing they made money from is not giving them that income anymore, right? I don't need to mention what it is, or whatever, but you can guess what people have been making a lot of money from recently, and the whole market's collapsed, right? But the problem is, the thing that these guys find really tough is that they've got used to living a certain lifestyle. They've got used to driving a really nice car. They've got used to living in a nice house and buying whatever food they like without having to think about it, without having to budget. Yeah. It's really hard to step down from a lifestyle like that. And it's a big test, bro, because that's when you could be really tempted to do haram things, like take loans from the bank, or even commit criminal activities in order to just keep up your lifestyle, right? This is when it gets really a big test for people. right?
And
So, these are some of the things, brothers and sisters, that, everything comes with its tests. Poverty has its tests, but wealth also comes with major fitness and tests as well that we have to be aware of. Be careful what isn't it that thing? Just be careful what you wish for. Sometimes we wish for something, and I just tell myself, you have to sometimes say, what, Allah knows what's best for you, bro. Allah, brothers and sisters, Allah knows what's best for you. Allah has given you right now what you need. It's okay. You can make dua, you can ask for more, but if Allah doesn't give it to you, believe me, He knows what is best for you. And maybe if you had more money and you had more wealth, or you had all those things you were making dua for, then who knows what haram and fitna you would fall into, and that would just be your destruction. May Allah protect us from it.
I mean, those are some very poignant points that you've mentioned, Abdurraheem. And I think, yes, with wealth, and we see that with the wealthy through the ages, that it facilitates the quality of life and the access to things that can make life easier. Conversely, you'll see those who become miserly, and what they actually start doing is they start working even more. They don't have any free time because they start worshipping their wealth. To make sure they worship their wealth to such an extent that you always see them out at work, and they think that by paying for those trappings for their family, it will keep their family happy. And it does for the best part, but then themselves being immersed and part of that family is something that's security. And you'll see that some families are like, we just want you. We don't care about this wealth and everything. We just want you. You're not around. Because they don't know the Pareto principle, the 80-20, where you put in 20 and 80% of the yield.
Yeah.
So, but what you're saying is right. It does afford the luxury. Those of us who've lived abroad, even in this society, those who've lived abroad and have been able to have maids, chauffeurs, drivers, everything, so that your wives can do whatever they want to do. You can do whatever you want to do. Pay for your children to go to school. Wealth does afford that. And coming back to the point that I spoke about earlier, but then do we become complacent? Do we become lackadaisical in the fact we've got all of that? And I think what you mentioned was another important point, that wealth before your poverty. Because once you've had that wealth, like the example I gave of when I was growing up as a child and relatively affluent and what we went into, and my mindset witnessing that is never to go back there or have my children face what I had to face. But it was a very good lesson. I think amongst when we're talking about wealth, when we look in the Western context, and this is another big subject, when we look at the Black communities, we see that there's inherited poverty, whereas we see with white communities, you and I've talked about privilege previously, there's inherited wealth. Okay, generally speaking, not in all cases, but generally speaking. So when you've got that inherited poverty mindset, when you come into money, you do sometimes feel, I've got to maintain this, keep this going. And you then fall into things like the haram in order to keep that hustle, to make sure that we don't fall back into where we were before. So this is a fascinating hadith in the sense that it's telling us to prepare, but not only prepare for the tangible, but the intangible, for preparing for the spiritual. Because when that wealth has gone, like we see with Prophet Ayub alayhi salam, subhanallah, look at the example of Ayub and what happened to him. They said, why don't you complain to your Lord? And as the hadith says, that he said, I've been blessed with wealth for 70 years and I've only been in poverty for, I don't know, X amount. It wasn't that great. And he said, how can I even complain? Now, look at us. We've had wealth for the best part. We may be in poverty for what, 6 months, a year? And we're like, woe is me. It's like, well, okay, what about all the years before? So Prophet Ayub is a fantastic example about how to be shakur, grateful, thankful, even in times of poverty, to reflect upon when we had that wealth, to make istighfar, to ask Allah to forgive us if we'd spent that wealth erroneously or wrongly, okay, while we're in poverty, hoping that He returns us to that or something better in our condition. Because remember, contentment is not the tangible wealth that you're speaking about. Contentment is with regards to your faith, your iman, and the sweetness of iman that you have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Well, bro, look, there's a really good question here. Maybe we can finish it on this question that has been asked, and you can give your opinion, I'll give my opinion, and we'll bring it to a close. But I think we could talk about this. It's one of those things. It always is with you and me, bro. I love the way we feed off each other. You say something, and it just sparks something in my head, and I say, "Oh, that's another rabbit hole we could go down." So, but this is really good. Is there a difference between how men and women view poverty and wealth? I think there is. Okay, I think there is. Again, it's not an absolute thing, but I think as a general rule, I think there are some differences between men and women. I think for women, I don't know about wealth, but I think security is very important for women. It's very, very much, part of their makeup, the psychological makeup. Women need to feel secure, and that's part of men's job, to make the men, Allah said, are the maintainers and protectors of women, right? So it's a man's job to maintain and protect the women, and she needs that environment in order to raise her family. I think the thing that highlights it for me is when a Dajjal comes. Now, if you remember at the coming of Masih ad-Dajjal, there will be years of poverty and drought. That's one of the reasons why his fitna will be so difficult, because of all the poverty and the drought and the starvation and the, and the thirst and everything, in a sense, it seems will be destroyed. And he will come, and wherever he is, if people follow him, the rain will fall, the cattle will grow, the treasures will come out from the earth, and men will have to tie down their women to stop them running after him. And I think that's connected partly to this fact that it's in the woman's nature, not necessarily to run after money for money's sake. I don't think that's necessarily true, but that great need for security, that great, because that's in her nature to protect her family. So I think whereas men generally, they are generally more able to do without, and I think we have to be, because we have to be out there doing the hunting or fighting the wars, and at the end of the day, you may not, you have to be doing that stuff on your own. So I think men perhaps can put up with that a bit better. I don't know. That's just my opinion. What do you think, Abdul Haqq?
I don't know. I think I'm still undecided, but what I would say is slightly different to what you're saying. I'll come on the flip side, the converse side, because when looking from experiences in my life and around globally, if you like, you'll see that women are more resilient to be able to do and make use of what they have. So, for example, as you said, let's go back to the wars. The men go out to the wars and everything. We've seen that the women have had to uphold the society in the way they have done and make do with what they had. We've had households that have been poverty stricken, and the women have had to make do with using the resources they've had to feed the children, to clothe the children, to put that security there. So for me, I feel that the anxiety aspect comes more from men in some respects because of that provision that that provider status that is afforded to them, depending on how patriarchal the society is. But with regards to the necessity of wealth, we have these stories about gold diggers and women wanting finances and everything. That's one extreme there. But I think women, no one likes poverty, but how many times do we as men come back to our wives and they give us reassurance that everything's okay? How many times do we see the women having fed their husbands, fed their children, fed their guests, and we haven't even asked, have you eaten? And they haven't, because they wanted to make sure that they were facilitating the environment at the time. So I'm out on this one. I think that it swings in roundabouts, but I do think that women have more of a resilience, and we all love wealth, but who are the ones who fall or succumb first in that instance? Now, I'll conclude on this point. You've got, for example, when is it that when we see the women who've gone into the longest trade in the world, as they say, those women who become prostitutes, do they do it as a result of leisure? Do they do it as a result of...
Most of them, it's out of desperation, and
exactly. And what are they doing that for? They've got children. They've got that's the thing that's driven them to do this particular act. So again, coming to that thing around how men and women view poverty, I think that it's a difficult one to say who is more insecure. But I'll come back to that term, resilience. I believe that women can be more resilient than us with regards to lack of wealth, with poverty, should I say, to be specific.
And I definitely, I mean, you look at, you can see the example of our, the Somali sisters here, who in the UK especially, a lot of them have come here without any men whatsoever, like small kids only, and they've just done amazing, subhanallah, heroic stuff, no doubt about it. But still, I don't know, Allahu alim, it's something to think about.
Can I
At the end of,
you said something
yeah.
that I'll tell you something that I know when I was working in the legal profession. What you said, yes, Allahumma back for the Somali women and sisters. But in the early 90s, I remember witnessing in the firm that I worked for, and I'm not going to say the area because I'd be saying I'm being stereotypical. But when they came over, there was a high rate of divorce because they're saying to their men, we don't need you. We get benefits here. You did nothing over there and you do nothing here. So we are going to be independent in that regard because the government gives us benefits and our children go to school for free.
Well, that's what comes from being a useless man who just sits around thinking you can do nothing. Why should anyone have to put up with nonsense like that? It's not there.
That's right.
But I mean, at the end of the day, bro, Allahu alim, I still think that, there's some other examples I was thinking of, but my brain has just gone tired. But I don't think we need to have a back and forth about this. At the end of the day, the bottom line is that everyone's unique, everyone is different. People are going to handle these things differently on an individual level. Is there a difference between the sexes? Allahu alim. I mean, like you said, maybe the jury is out on that one. Maybe there's nothing definitive that we can say about it. I think that we could look in the seerah, might give us some more indications, but Allahu alim, that was then, and who knows, societies change, people change, circumstances are different. I know definitely, for example, in some of the countries that I've been to lecturing, one of the things I learned pretty quickly is to be careful what I say. I can't judge everyone's circumstances by how things are in the UK. So, for example, you gave a good example. The Somali, whoever it is, comes over here, they get benefits, they get free education. They say, why do I need this bum of a husband who just does absolutely nothing except spend our money on cut and gambling? And because often that's unfortunately what it is, right? Depleting the family's wealth on rubbish, useless things, right? So, but then there are other situations where a woman is almost entirely dependent on her husband. Like if she loses her husband, that's it for her. There's nothing. There's no way to maintain herself. It's quite scary what she has to then put up with in order just to be able to survive. A lot of these women don't see any way out. It's like if her husband says, I don't want you wearing hijab, what's she going to do? If she doesn't obey him and he gets rid of her, she's on the street. How's she going to look after herself? These are societies that don't even give a scope for women to do work.
Right.
So it's very challenging, bro. It's very, very challenging. You see the threat of poverty, and it goes full circle to what you were saying at the beginning, which is a neat way of concluding it, is that, if Allah has blessed you with wealth, make sure you use it for good and don't oppress people, whether it's your wife, your children, or other human beings. Use it for goodness, and that is the way to make use of your wealth, because who knows when Allah can take that wealth away from you and leave you in poverty, and then you'll really understand what you missed out on.
Absolutely. And I think that I put a disclaimer in case anyone comes back at us. We're not saying that Somali men are in, because there's fantastic men who are doing their roles and
I'm just talking about the women who divorced their husbands because presumably they were sitting around doing nothing. It wouldn't just divorce them. Just
no, that's what it was. That's the example.
Yeah. I'm just saying, absolutely. Listen, my daughter's married to a Somali, so a second. One of my daughters has a Somali husband, so
Alhamdulillah.
alhamdulillah, nothing against Somali men in general. There's plenty loser white men, loser black men, loser
Asian.
whatever color, whatever. There's losers everywhere, and there's grifters and hard workers everywhere as well. You know,
right.
Men and women. So we're just exploring the subject. It's not anything definitive. Everyone is free to agree or disagree, hopefully with some basis of either, you know, experience or something that Allah has said or the Prophet has said. That's what we're trying to aim for. But it's just a chat, isn't it, bro? We're not here giving any fatwas. So.
No, that's not us. That's not us. Yes, as Taskin, I think, says, we can conclude on that. There are good and bad in every community. And
Absolutely.
as you said, with a conclusive statement, let's make sure that we take advantage of whatever wealth we have before poverty. Jazakallah. Well, yeah. See you next week, or it may be the week after, because we've got the days coming up. Eid. There's going to be others doing things over the weekend, so we'll wait and see what Hassan says.
So we might give it a break for next week, inshallah, and then we'll join after the festivities. Well, I suppose we should really conclude with a premature Eid Mubarak to everyone. You know, we may not be able to say that to you until way after. So in advance, we hope everyone has just a truly amazing Eid, alhamdulillah, and may Allah bless it, and may Allah accept whatever. Go on, bro.
Yeah, sorry. May Allah accept, as you said, our deeds this time. The Hujjaj, may Allah accept their pilgrimage. And fantastic day of Arafah. Let's make sure we're there making the dua on this powerful, powerful day. And as Brother Abdurraheem, Anthony Green says there, have a wonderful Eid, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, bro. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum from me, Abdurraheem Green.
Wa alaikum salam from me, Abdul Haqq Baker. Take care.